True Seeker. Today's big story. Well, there's a couple of them. I just covered the last one if you missed it. Donald Trump getting put back on the ballot in Colorado by the numbers. But the other big one is Nikki Haley. She just could not remember that the American Civil War was so centered around slavery. And what a monumental joke, again, it is. It's so annoying that the American people cannot figure out what a joke we are treated like every single day. And as they say, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. But yeah, Nikki Haley, her response yesterday, that wasn't an accident. That wasn't a flub. That was scripted theater, because that's what these politicians are. They're actors on the world stage participating in the scripted political theater. Why did the man in the crowd need to ask her, "Hey, Nikki Haley, what was the Civil War about?" Oh, did we all not go to third grade? I mean, come on. Like, why does that question even need to be asked? Is it something that just came to light for the first time last week? This is a joke, okay? And people don't get the joke, because just like how they didn't teach you in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, they didn't teach you in any of those grades about the real history of this nation and the founders and how they were members of a secret society called Freemasonry. They also didn't talk about the Jesuit influence and how the founders were worried about the Jesuits creeping around and what might happen if they come out of suppression. They don't teach you about how Lincoln blamed the American Civil War on the influence of the Jesuits and the Pope, and why he really got smoked on April 14th, the day the Secret Service was established. The Secret Service, secret societies. Anyhow, for those who need a little history lesson reminder, the American Civil War began in South Carolina. Where's Nikki Haley from? Oh, that's right. She's from South Carolina. And who used to be the supreme grand master of the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, headquartered in Charleston, where the American Civil War began? Oh, that's right, Albert Pike, who wrote that letter about 3 world wars, only for Netanyahu to come back on his birthday last year and, start the beginnings of clearly what's leading to the third event. But, of course, he came back on 12/29 last year. Look at this big story today, one day before the anniversary of Albert Pike's birthday. And let's go back down memory lane and let's talk about 2020 and what we've been pointing out up to right now. So let's go back to June 26th, 2020. Do you remember what the big news story was that day? It was the cell phone video footage being released of George Floyd being killed by a group of cops in Minneapolis. And they said that George Floyd was killed the day prior. Excuse me, I just misspoke on the date. It wasn't June 26th. It was May 26th, 2020. My bad. But it was the day prior, May 25th, 2020, that he was reportedly killed. And what was May 25th? It was Memorial Day. And what's the history of Memorial Day? See, that's the sad thing about America. The average American would not be able to tell you what Memorial Day came out of. They might know that it came out of like a war, but they probably wouldn't remember which war it came out of. It came out of the American Civil War, which began in Charleston, South Carolina, down where Nikki Haley's from. So George Floyd killed reportedly May 25th by a gang of racist cops. Racism towards a black man, slavery, history, right? So George Floyd on Memorial Day, which traces back to the American Civil War. Now, there's an important pattern that we need to follow, and most of you here probably already know exactly where I'm going to go, but there's always a new person here. For the new person, understand I've been working on a book since the time of George Floyd up to now, which I still haven't finished because there's always new things, and I always want to add more, but keep the book concise. And it's really difficult. But what the book is about is understanding the significance of the number 201 and how important it is to this entire nation's history, from its inception through the American Civil War up to nearly everything you read about every single day. And with regards to Nikki Haley, she's born on Inauguration Day, January 20th, which it was not always Inauguration Day. Just like how this nation's capital wasn't always in Philadelphia, This nation's inauguration day wasn't always January 20th either. They both got moved. It got moved to D.C., the Jesuit stronghold, which is also known as the Masonic City, when modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation. The Jesuits are the military order of the Catholic Church, thus all the Roman architecture in D.C., the Jesuit stronghold, which it's been for longer than the federal government's been there. But Inauguration Day also got moved to January 20th. And January 20th, in the majority of the world, is written 20/1, like the number 201. And it's also the 201st day of the US's age every single year. 201. So that's Nikki Haley's birthday. And to go back to George Floyd, his death was compared to Adama Traore's murder by cops. And Adama Traore was killed exactly 201 weeks earlier, on the 201st day of the year, which was July 19th, 2016, a leap year. And the thing about 201, again, you got to go back to the history of the Jesuit order. The Jesuits came out of France. Their mission was to serve the Pope. The last French Pope was the 201st Pope in the history of the Church. Pope Francis, the current Pope, is the first publicly Jesuit Pope and the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. Again, the Jesuits are into Kabbalah. In Kabbalah, there's something called Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. In this little simple code of ABC 1, 2, 3, the Jesuit order equals 201. Ignatius of Loyola equals 201. That's the Jesuit founder. Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 201. That's the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis. George Perry Floyd, that's George Floyd who got killed in a giant 201 ritual. George Perry Floyd, 201. After George Floyd's death, Confederate statues got torn down all over America in the riots that ensued that were provoked and instigated by these rituals. And one of the Confederate statues that came down was the only one in Washington, D.C., that of Albert Pike. Albert Pike, the reason he has a statue in D.C. is because he's one of the most important Freemasons in the history of the nation. His body's buried at the House of the Temple in D.C. And, statues of him at that building, his writings, etchings all over the city. But from the fall of the Albert Pike statue, June 19th, 2020, to January 6th, was exactly 201 days later. And he was the leader, one of the leaders of the Confederate Army. The word Confederate in Gematria equals 201 as well. And recall, after January 6th, what did they do? They compared the police presence for the Black Lives Matter protests after George Floyd with the police presence for January 6th, where the Trump supporters came to march. Remember, that was a thing they kept just putting in your focus, right? Nonstop with the news. Oh my God, look how many police they had for the George Floyd protesters, those racist cops against black people, compared to the lack of a police presence for January 6th. Remember, they kept doing this. And if you weren't here before January 6th, as we've done so many times, we accurately forecasted the future and what the headlines would be for that day. We predicted how they would pay tribute to the Civil War. Sure enough, the Confederate flag flew. Think about what day they did it, you guys. The 6th day of the first month. What year did the American Civil War begin? 1861. R.I.P. to Andre Brower, who recently died. At the same time, they debuted the new Civil War movie to come out, and one set in the future. We'll get to that as well. That Civil War trailer debuted the other week, 201 days after Alex Garland's birthday, who's the director of the film. And at the same time, Andre Brower's death was trending, who died his death was trending in the news 201 days before his upcoming birthday. And we covered this a few weeks back. And at the same time, Obama's new movie was trending. It still is, but that also focuses on a future event that brings about something like a civil war in America, where that's a theme in the movie. And of course, Obama's from the land of Lincoln, the Civil War president, born in 1961 on the 100th anniversary, or I should say in the year of the 100th anniversary of the start of the American Civil War. But again, this 201 trail, right? The 201 trail. And like we've been saying the whole time, how Albert Pike is so central to all of this. So they have to give you this in the news today, one day before the anniversary of his birthday, which is 1229, and 1229 is the 201st prime. And let's not forget, Albert Pike has that infamous letter dated August 15th, 1871, written to Manzini, who was the second leader of the Illuminati when the Illuminati was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, and its official name, Order of Illuminati equals 201. And Adam Weishaupt died in history 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment. And then you got Netanyahu coming back on Pike's birthday last year, 1229, the 201st prime, when he stepped down on June 13th, 2021, the day leaving 201 days left in the year, when State of Israel equals 201. And David Ben-Gurion, his first prime minister, died 201 days after the anniversary of Israel's establishment. Again, that's why learning this number, the number of the Illuminati. And why is it the number of the Illuminati? Because in Hebrew Gematria, light equates to 201. Light, 201, the illuminated. The cabal, the people who rule over us, having the knowledge, the information, knowing the history, mocking us every day with these literally just stupid stories. I mean, really, Nikki Haley's got all this money behind her. People just invested millions of dollars in her to run for office, and she's too stupid to give a very obvious answer about the Civil War. But that is the other annoying thing about this, right? That's all we learn in slave school is we pledge to the 13 stripes. When it comes to the Civil War, we pledge for 13 years to the 13 stripes of the nation that came out of 13 colonies that was established just after the Illuminati, founded with 13 families, right? They skip that part. They don't teach us about the Illuminati and the 13 families, or even really have us think about how we're in 13 years of slave school, or how slavery really never ended. It's the freedom, right? We got the freedom. It's like, where are we free? My freedom is why I have to be in this slave classroom learning this bullshit every day from this, person who's not adequate to teach me anything, which is probably most of our experiences why we were in slave school, just being disappointed and bored and thinking like, what does this have to do with my life? And what's the relevance of learning this today? And really, Christopher Columbus discovered a land where people already live. But anyway, I mean, this is just, it's just pathetic. It's just so pathetic. Nikki Haley, oh my God, she didn't know that the Civil War had to do with slavery. By the way, here's another one. The reflection of 201, the reflection of that number is 102. What day did the American Civil War begin? Was it April 12th, 1861, the 102nd day of the year? It sure was. What's slavery equal in Gematria? Oh, it equals 102. How about the Jesuit text, Art of War? Again, for people who are like, it's a Jesuit text? I thought a Chinese guy named Sun Tzu wrote it. Well, that's what's written on the cover, but if you look into it, there's no proof of Sun Tzu ever existed. There is proof that the reason we know about the text is the Jesuit priest, Father Amiot, who translated it, which is the only reason the book's famous, because of the Jesuits. And it's funny how Art of War equals 102, like World War equals 102, like how 102 days before 9/11 happened, when two towers became zero before they became one. The federal Jesuit government simulated the attack of Al-Qaeda on America. If you didn't know that, look it up. It's facts. It's called the Amalgam Virgo. That's what it's called. Look it up. Operation Amalgam Virgo. June 1st, 2001, 102 days before 9/11. Same numbers all throughout history, guys, from the beginning of the country. That's why the Revolutionary War, where we never got free from the UK, which is controlled by the church. That's why it began on Ignatius of Loyola's anniversary, becoming the superior general of the Jesuits, April 19th. Same reason Oklahoma City blew up on that day. The federal building blamed on Timothy McVeigh, whose name equals 201, plus the million other 201s on that ritual. And what's crazy is if you go to the Oklahoma City Memorial site, it's on a campus owned by Freemasons. Yeah, literally, go to the Oklahoma City Memorial site, and you'll see that it's on grounds owned by the Freemasons, and the lodge, the Masonic lodge, is right behind the building, and they literally even have information there that the lodge sold for $201,000. Go figure. But anyway, it's just like, God, I mean, they really do just treat us like we're just morons every day. They demolish towers and blame it on a man in a cave and say they couldn't find the planes or the black boxes, but somehow they recovered the passports. They get away with reporting that in the news. For now over 20 years, they still haven't released any footage of a plane hitting the Pentagon. That's another good one to look into. Pentagon maskell simulated October 24th, 2000, exactly 322 days before 9/11, which is interesting because 322 is the number of skull and bones, modeled after the Illuminati. Like the founder of the Illuminati died on the 322nd day of the year, 201 days after the anniversary of the Illuminati's establishment. And of course, George W. Bush, who was in Skull and Bones, was the president at the time. But yeah, get into a million number rituals with 9/11, but again, the point is you learn the real history, you learn the cabal's best kept secret, the numerical code behind the English language, and all of this stuff just becomes so transparent. And again, I can't get any views on this channel anymore. The last time I had a video get to 100,000 views, it was my videos predicting what would happen on January 6th, which were predictions based on the June 12th, 2020 simulation at Jesuit Georgetown called the Transition Integrity Project that simulated that Donald Trump would lose the election to Biden, refuse to step down, which would lead to deadly violence and chaos, which was your stage January 6th. And, for accurately forecasting all of that, and then the video having moderate success, reaching 100,000 views, it was deleted for, get this, medical misinformation. And of course, they like to do that a lot after Event 201, the pandemic simulation that just so happened to take place October 18th, 2019, led by a Jesuit, Klaus Schwab, on the same day the military world games began in Wuhan, China. And remember how they said that the lab leak theory, and if you look into that lab, it was created by the French, which is where the Jesuits are from. And anyway, if you haven't seen the Event 201 simulation, it's actually still up online. You can watch it. In the simulation, they even simulate how they're going to censor people online who question what's going on in the pandemic. It's like, wow, they really thought this one out. And then they went even beyond that, and then they started calling everything medical misinformation. Oh my God, he figured out our January 6th stage ritual. Let's take it down for medical misinformation. How dare he expose that we simulated this on June 12th, 2020. This guy's got our number. And we do have their number. And it's a damn shame that the whole world doesn't know this 201 code at this point, at least the whole English-speaking world, because they should. R.I.P. to Joe Biden's wife and daughter, killed in a 201 ritual back on Limestone Road. Limestone Road 201 goes with the pyramids being made out of limestone, and there being 201 remaining layers of bricks, and Great Pyramid of Giza equaling 201, which is the symbol used by the Illuminati. Goes with Beau Biden, his son, dying 201 days before the Pope's birthday, the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. R.I.P. to Beau Biden, dead at 46 before Joe became number 46, 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. R.I.P. to Donald Trump's ex-wife, buried last year on the 201st day of the year, July 20th, 2022, dead 45 years after her marriage to number 45, who's back on the ballot in Colorado today, 197 days after his birthday, the 45th prime, and also 9 days after his removal, where 45 is the 9th triangular number. But again, coming back to the Masons, what do the Masons put on their temple? All is number. All is number. I love when people come to my work and they're like, oh, that's that guy. He just thinks like everything is numbers. I'm not the one who has Masonic temples in the nation's capital where it's etched right on the building, all is number. I mean, how do you interpret it? How do you interpret the phrase all is number? Isn't it funny that they also study the 47th problem of Euclid, one of the Greek mathematicians like Pythagoras, who said all is number? And then everything in DC is 47. President equals 47. Like White House, like government, like authority, like Republican, like Democrat, like DC, like the cornerstone laid on 4-7, like Trump in the 47-story Midtown Hilton Hotel the night of the rig selection for him, like Biden president, or excuse me, senator for 47 years before becoming president-elect, when he was also the 47th vice president who took office with 47-year-old Obama. Again, all is number. Learn, a handful of these numbers. You don't have to memorize everything I teach, but man, know your 201s, know your 47s, of course, know your 33s. But yeah, it's just such a slap in the face. It's such a slap in the face. And sometimes, like, I'm really annoyed with myself that I haven't finished my book on 201, but then at the same time, sometimes I'm like, well, it's not like I've been keeping the information just to myself in pages that nobody's reading about. I'm sharing everything that I'm learning every single day. Oh, let's not forget what happened to Prince, who did the song Black Donald Trump, who died the year of the election, where Trump was the rigged candidate that year. And, of course, R.I.P. to Prince, who died 201 days before the election. Never heard his song Black Donald Trump? Check it out. Starts to make a lot of sense why he died on 4/21 when you realize you used the 21st letter and he had the song I Would Die For You, spelled number 4, letter U. Let's not forget Vanity died the day of the Grammys that year, which is what helped us predict Prince's death before it happened. And then they lit up Niagara Falls, where she's from, purple the day he died, which is also the Queen's birthday. It goes on and on and on. Purple equals 88, like Elizabeth, like Trump. That's why Trump's convention began 88 days after the Queen's birthday. And then he came out to Queen, We Are the Champions, which he got criticism in the headlines for. And, it went with the Queen getting diagnosed with COVID and then dying 201 days later. And it went with her, knighting Captain Tom and then him dying 201 days later from COVID when the simulation was called Event 201. And it went with him being known for the Burma campaign and him dying the day after Burma's government fell. It's makeshift government that in history was created on the same day the Jesuits were recognized by Rome, September 27th, which is the day leaving 95 days left in the year, like their original mission was to counter the 95 Theses, which is why Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on the 95th day of the year. Again, Martin Luther wrote the 95 Theses in history, which brought about the Jesuits exactly 201 weeks after he penned the 95 Theses, which is why the first major gun control in this nation, it came 201 days after MLK's assassination, and just on and on and on and on. So anyway, we'll keep this one short and sweet. And yeah, good reminder that Georgetown's motto is both into one. That's 100% true. And doesn't that kind of remind you of 201? Both into one. 201. The Twin Towers become no towers, become one World Trade Center. Okay, and for all the sports enthusiasts, I'll be finishing up the football content, and then we'll be streaming all about 35 Thursday in a couple of hours. So put out the notes soon, and then we'll be streaming on Patreon about 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern, a little more than an hour before game time. So thank you to everyone who supports the Patreon. Thank you to everyone who supports the work. Thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. And until next time, True Seeker.